What's good, YouTube? And welcome to the house. We're live to both YouTube and Twitch right now, but we got a surprise upload conversation for Friday, and that's an interesting one. Used to, Gladiator Beast was the deck that would come back again and again throughout metagames. As we would see a ban list happen, things would get nerfed, and people would pick up their Gladiator Beast to start a format with before it evolved. I think this has now become Burning Abyss in some senses, but even more than that, as formats develop, Burning Abyss seems to take over. We did just hit a ban list, but through the 200th YCS, one of the biggest events of all time, we saw Burning Abyss appear in 2 of the finals, and even take one down with Team PPG's Andres Torres. So how did this happen? Well, Burning Abyss happens to be one of the most resilient archetypes ever constructed, and does come with some TCG exclusive power overall. Only one card really crafted for the OCG that actually adds a whole new element for the deck. But Dante himself allows you to recur resources and also get a pretty big power boost as he becomes 2500 defense, also switches himself to defense and becomes 2500. So this big boy with awesome resource game gets cycled with Seer. Seer allows us to actually go back for Dante into defense, a 2500 blocker that gets you a resource. So our floating starts to get even further. Graph allows you to go into the deck for said floating. And if you don't want to end on Dante, you can end on stuff like searchers like Skarm. If Skarm's sent to the graveyard, you're able to search out of your deck, even outside of Archetype, any level 3 Dark Fiend monster. That includes something like Tour Guide. So you have all these natural base resources, and we're only into their first set ever released. Seer, Graph, Skarm, and Dante. Those are the first cards ever released for BA. It's almost complete package as is. Going into the namesake of another YouTuber, Farfa actually gives a huge power play to the deck, and the fact that you can banish your opponent's cards or even your own. You can target one monster on the field and banish it till the end phase. So if you need your monsters to go away and come back later as a resource to dodge your opponent's cards, you can use Farfa. That interaction with both players' cards is important. Recently, actually, in an event, there's a card that allows you to steal other monsters by negating their effects, but if you negate your own effects, they can't steal it. That's Widow Anchor, if you don't get it, and there's a Burning Abyss monster that allows you to do that. So Beatrice will be sending that card to negate her. She has 2800 defense. Sky Striker has a problem dealing with Beatrice, and hey, they can't take it anymore during that turn. Beatrice also is the OCG element to the deck. You send any card from your deck to the graveyard by detaching a material, and you can rank up a Dante into her by just discarding any Burning Abyss monster. So you have an on-demand Foolish Burial, in a sense, from your deck as a quick play, where you can garner resources from the graveyard, from the deck, for later, to banish your opponent's cards, all through one lady. And when she actually leaves the field, ends up passing away due to your opponent's destruction, you get to further go into a fusion card Dante that's 2800 that's a problem to deal with. Beatrice really brought the deck all together in terms of resource management, but also having reactions. One of the first kind of reactive cards in the deck instead of a setup card overall. A big boost recently as well is Sekka's Light. Sekka's Light here allows us to take all the spells previous played in the deck and really concentrate on the strategy itself for both link summoning and also setting up your reactive Beatrice, and that you're going to add consistency by drawing 2 cards and giving up your spell and traps in the deck outside of monsters. There's so many monsters in Burning Abyss, along with other strategies such as Kaiju's, Orbital Hydralander, Fiendish Rhino Warrior, that you don't really need spells and traps outside of the monsters. One of the first times we've really seen this apply through in Yu-Gi-Oh! And consistently do well. Infinite Impermanence would seem like it would slow down the deck when you have Tour Guide and Fiendish Rhino Warrior, but I think that adds also an element of skill to the deck in playing through that and Effect Veiler that, hey, I know when to start special summoning these guys because they all come out of your hand as well for just not activating their effect that turn, setting behind something that can become a defensive wall that can become a reactive and use their effects all the next turn. you kind of decide when you're going to start playing these cards. Like, is this turn okay? Have they reacted to something? Can I go ahead and summon this on the field? When is a good time for this? And Phoenix Rhino Warrior also gets effect when sent, allowing you to float through your other cards. In my opinion, Burning Abyss really is already on that next level. Speaking about further OCG cards, we haven't got the Brains Pack Cherubini, a Link monster, yet we still see this top cut presence. The OCG has a Link to downward pointing specific Burning Abyss monster that we don't have that takes any 2 level 3 monsters in or out of archetype. Yet, we're seeing top cut presence in the finals of the biggest events, over 2,000 people from Burning Abyss. Let that sink in a little. Why is that? It's the resilience of the deck entering a new format where everything else is hit. This deck, by and afar, has the ultimate grind game. Something that not every Yu-Gi-Oh player is adept for or is good at. A lot of people like to combo, and either shut their opponents off with hand traps and kill them through the next turn, or combo off the first turn, set up, and hope they've killed their opponents. Burning Abyss makes your opponent play the game. It actually makes them interact with you. It makes you grind through decks, and it makes sure you're good with them. Then, further than that, outside of perhaps that control, Burning Abyss continues to push forward. It continues to force your opponent to play past turns that they might have wanted to, and forces resource management, something that it's better than any other deck. Even with Seer at 1, even with Graph at 1, having access to 3 Dantes allows you to continue to push your opponent's resources to their limits while recycling yours, going through the motions, and then overpowering your opponent. I think that's also where Burning Abyss gets a huge plus factor. So you have floating, resource management, reactionary plays. It's almost the perfect package, even though it all came together years ago. Even though it had its moments as a finals in Necros format, it was Burning Abyss versus Burning Abyss, and the deck hasn't evolved that much. We've had new pieces here and there. I don't think too much has actually changed in the play style of the deck. The skill level of the deck hasn't raised exponentially. The formats have, and those formats aren't used to the grind game that Burning Abyss presents. But what do you guys think of Burning Abyss? Like, we've had other decks in the past. Gladiator Beast, Mermails, other decks, so to speak, that really offer, like, the ability to restart a format. But Burning Abyss, I think, has lasted now further than any of them and has had a greater presence than any of them. What do you guys think made this all come together, besides what I've mentioned already? Is there another element to this deck, another layer to this deck that you guys think? Open chat, anybody have any ideas here?
Well, one thing I feel like Burning Abyss offers is that there's just so much you can do with the deck. So, for example, just generically, Dante mills 3, and while that can hit Burning Abyss cards, it can hit a lot of other cards as well. So, for example, in the past, we've had decks like Phantom Knight, Burning Abyss, and that deck was really good because the idea is to turbo out rank 3s, but at the same time, you're milling Phantom Knights with Dante, and that gets you searches for Fogblade, and it just gets really insane from there.
Yeah, that's just a whole nother layer. Like, PK Fire is what it was called, even though it was Burning Abyss, because we had Fire Lake and similar cards.
Right.
You have another rank 3 ability that also has traps in the mix, and Phantom Knights actually have their own Link monster coming, so maybe an interesting mix there as well. But overall, I think you have this resource game that looks at the hand, the deck, the graveyard, your ability to special out a hand, your ability to special out a deck, say with Graph, your ability to resource your graveyard with Seer. Skarm resources your deck, all within the initial part of the pack. And then Dante even looking at both the graveyard and perhaps the ability to replenish your hand. Everything just looked at the ultimate formula for, I think, floating. Whereas you then in future sets got the ability to perhaps burn your opponent in the current time rules with Barbar. I actually know matches that went to time because this deck does float so well. And then Barbar would seal the deal. Or you have Farfa, able to take down opponents' monsters without actually having to finish them off, being able to go through them and just getting that direct attack. Like, there's so many options this deck has in terms of ability to deal with the opponent's cards and also your own, that it's pretty crazy what it has to actually offer compared to other decks. And I think that's why it's so long lasting, to the point where Sekka's Light is almost norm in this deck, and you're not interacting with your own spell and traps. Like, Floodgate BA was one of the original versions. Now you're just looking at, I want to play all my monsters in a single turn. But thanks for watching, everybody. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed the discussion, period, whether you have the same point or not, and let me know in the comment section below what you think of Burning Abyss and what makes it kind of the new, in a sense, Gladiator Beast if you're an Ancient player, the new Mermails, the ability to pop up time and time again, format through format, and even get wins up to 3 years later after its inception, despite so many limits. Seer to 1, Graph to 1, Beatrice to 1. How does this keep on doing it, even without their OCG exclusive Link monster over here in the TCG? Well, thanks for watching, everybody, and subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks, that's Blade Yu-Gi-Oh! In the open chat, the one man who stepped forward. Check out his YouTube.